Thanks for listening to the Pop Culture Cosmos and the PCC Multiverse. Check out more great podcasts today on one of these awesome affiliate networks.
You're listening to a Weeby Geeks Network podcast.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
The Tangibound Network. Check it out. TangiboundNetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time.
A proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other geeky podcasts over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
On this week's episode, what's coming up for horror fans in the first half of 2019? Is the return of Titanfall a good thing? And the good and bad from the advertisements at the big game. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos.
Welcome to the Pop Culture Cosmos.
And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows as we cover the world of pop culture with the latest news and trends each and every week. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is the commercial reviewer of Humanica Media. You got to check out everything going on today with humanicamedia.com, Humanica Media on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and so much more. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. Hey man, can you believe it? We're at 1,000 subscribers on Podbean.
Let me just point out the fact that I think it's hilarious that you're about to call this show the Pop Culture Costco.
Yeah, I know. Well, I am an executive member. I'm thinking about putting that on my gravestone. Loving father, try to be good human to all mankind. Executive card holder at Costco. Yes. There you go. There you go. But it is going to be a great episode. We're going to be talking about the best and the worst that went on during the big game with all the advertisements and trailers. We're going to be talking about as much as we can when it comes to that. Plus, also as well, we're going to be talking to my good friend, Jason Todd Fineburgh from the show Hunnicween. You got to check out his great podcast as it hits on a lot of topics within the pop culture realm. He is our horror movie expert, and he's going to break down some of the films that are coming out in the first half of 2019 when it comes to the horror movie genre. And we're also going to be talking about Titanfall going free to play, which could already be happening by the time you hear this show. But first, my friend, it was a big game, and it was a big dud of a football game. But there was still a lot of things to talk about when it comes to the ads and the trailers that are out there. Obviously, the one that was just the biggest thing that everybody was talking about is the Avengers Endgame trailer. So I want to hear your thoughts on the Avengers Endgame trailer that came out. Not really much into depth other than you see some of the after effects of what happened with Thanos' snap.
Well, that alone was interesting because that's what they didn't show us in the original trailer was what happened to the world in the aftermath of the Thanos snap.
Pretty dark, wasn't it?
It was pretty dark.
Did somebody slip a DC movie in there or something?
Oh, I see what you did there. Is this a Zack Snyder film? No, but because I was curious about whether or not when these people disappeared, were the people's memories of them going to disappear too? But now I see that that's not a thing. Obviously, the Avengers are superpowered people, so maybe it wouldn't their memories won't be affected. But it was interesting because really that's the question that's been on my mind since I saw the end of Avengers Infinity War was how is the world reacting to this? So it looks like, life didn't go on. You see in the trailer, life didn't move on. Everything's a ghost town. Everything's dark and it dreary. So that was cool. Even though it was 30 seconds, I really enjoyed seeing that. And now I am that much more hyped about the movie. But what did you think?
Well, when it comes to what you were talking about as far as how people reacted, that's interesting that you were thinking that are people going to be forgetting about it? Will there be a mind swipe with everybody else that did exist outside of that? But you couldn't really have that if the Avengers know what's going on And obviously they were sad about what's going on. So you really couldn't have where just the Avengers were knowledgeable about it. Now, from what I'm able to ascertain from what rumors or what leaks have been about, I think the world is not aware of Thanos or the snap part of it. They just don't understand what happened at all. I think that's what I'm gathering. Is that what you've been hearing as well?
That makes more sense because look at it like, what about, I mean, they had the giant circle thing on Earth, but there weren't really any fights with Thanos that took place on Earth. So there wouldn't have been news coverage. So it would be kind of an unknown event to everybody. But then it went away. And like, you didn't actually see Thanos though. Like after that was gone, nothing took place on Earth again after that and until the Wakanda thing. So maybe that's when it happened. I don't know. Like, because again, the trailer didn't show any like news coverage of anything. So maybe people don't even know what happened in Wakanda.
That's true because Wakanda remains somewhat hidden, even though it exposed themselves to the world as far as wanting to help or whatnot. But it was still treated like somewhat of a secretive society, a secretive country, and obviously for privacy reasons and security reasons as well. But it did not, unfortunately, come out well for Wakanda and the rest of the planet Earth, and in fact the galaxy as a whole, as everyone knows out there from what happened with Infinity War and Thanos' snap, and half the population of everything was wiped out. It's kind of dark. Obviously the commercial, it leads you to believe that, but it's still very interesting. I agree with you. We've always criticized DC as being too dark all of the time, but in this case it was something that I think needed to be done, because when you obliterate half the universe, there's going to be no better roses. You can't portray it in a better light. You cannot get that type of humor and enthusiasm and excitement for it and bright colors and everything like that. You have to make it dark. You have to make it despondent. You have to make it something that's really just almost desperate and almost hopeless as far as the theme that you're trying to get across. And I think the Russos, in doing so, really portrayed that, showing the MetLife Stadium empty, ships that were just crowded all over the place. Were they just abandoned? Were they moved there as far as ships that people found and just towed to shore and whatnot? How was that done? And obviously getting the grief counseling that Captain America seemed to be doing in the actual trailer itself. It seems like a lot of people are still trying to cope with that issue, including Captain America himself. But getting into more of the trailer, we also see a clip of Nebula and Iron Man. They're working on something, maybe a way to get off the planet and into the position where Tony Stark was in the original Endgame trailer, where he was stuck in space? Or do you think this is something that's a little bit beyond that? Your thoughts on what's going on with Tony Stark and Nebula in the Super Bowl trailer?
I don't know. To me, that looked like that was not.
Do you think it takes place after or before the message that Tony leaves Pepper Potts in the original Endgame trailer?
I think it's after. Like, that looked like it took place somewhere on Earth, because the planet, like if you look at the landscape in the trailer and the landscape on the planet, they look like two completely different things. So I'm going to say that it takes place afterwards, but that's hard for me to say because I've heard a lot of rumors saying that Nebula is going to be kind of a rogue force in this next movie. So maybe she wouldn't be teaming up with Iron Man. I don't know.
Well, it's difficult to say because in the comic book, she definitely is a rogue figure there for all intents and purposes. She actually takes possession of the glove with all the Infinity Stones on it. She gets the power. Could we see something materialize of that? I'm not so sure. I think you're right. Nebula probably will play some sort of key role in the film. Will it be to the extent of what the comic book dictated? We'll have to wait and see. What did you think was going on with Rocket Raccoon? Because he seemed to be entering a different place with mountainous area behind him. Do you think a lot of people are already saying that could be various places on Earth, such as Wakanda or somewhere else? Your thoughts on what's going on with Rocket Raccoon, because of the fact that his whole entire crew with the Guardians of the Galaxy is, at the moment, they're like the Kansas song, Dust in the Wind.
I didn't really look that far into it. If I were to make a guess, though, I would say it's some kind of place where there is technology. So maybe it's Wakanda, but it also looked like, didn't it look like there was snow behind him a little bit? So My first thought when I saw that, it reminded me of the place where Zemo went to kill everybody. So I don't know, man. Like it's obviously somewhere where there's tech where he can build something because that's what he does. So he needs something like that to fulfill whatever it is or make himself feel like he's a part of the team. Because obviously he's still alive for some reason. The writers left him alive for some specific reason. So I'm curious what it is. Are they going to build a machine that will let Ant-Man go into the quantum realm? Is it a weapon? What is it? What are we dealing with? Unfortunately, we only got that 3-second glimpse of him, so we can't really dig too far into it at the moment.
And you also see him along with the other alive Avengers. They're leaving the Avengers facility. Look, I don't know if it was like a late afternoon or very shadowy shot, or maybe early morning. That I'm not sure of. Your thoughts on what was going on there? Were they heading out to battle, or were they just planning something? And there was a gap there. If you notice the way they were lined up, there was a distinct gap. I don't know if it's something that is planned, is something there, but we've seen that type of thing before when it comes to the trailers for Infinity War, with alterations being done from the Wakandan scenes that were put into the Infinity War trailer. So do you think something could have been there that's not there now, but will be there at some point in time in Avengers Endgame?
Oh, of course. They always do that. They always show you stuff that's not in the film or vice versa.
Like, for instance, Thor's eyes and whatnot.
Or that, yeah. There was an inconsistency there that the fans actually picked out, and that's probably what made them want to go through and change that. Or maybe it was Lego that showed Thor with an eye. He still had his eye, or as a toy or something. But no, that scene that you saw in the end where everyone's standing next to each other, I honestly think that is just them doing their thing, because I'm predicting that in the beginning of the movie they're not going to know what to do. That's why we see Steve Rogers mourning and all the other characters kind of doing their thing. I don't think they're going to know what to do until Ant-Man shows up, and I think he's going to maybe have the answer they're looking for. And that scene is just them going, oh yes, it's time to go to war. Like, they have those classic montage scenes where it shows everyone like putting their gloves on, putting the mask on, Captain America's hitting his shield onto his arm. I think that's what that moment is.
Wouldn't it be cool if the reason that everything goes back to normal and Thanos is defeated is because of that awesome band from Ant-Man?
Yes, I saw this thing pop up on Facebook yesterday that said before Endgame starts, they need to have a complete recap narrated by Michael Pena.
That would
The
be
whole
awesome.
like Marvel series.
That would be really cool. I would pay to see that. But anyways, it is just a lot we've tried to break down in a 30-second spot. If you have not seen it yet, and my goodness, if you weren't watching the game real carefully at the beginning, you might have missed it. It is available on our popculturecosmos.com website. It's right there for you. You can go ahead and click right on it, and it's right there. Check it out today, popculturecosmos.com. Another trailer that we also added to our popculturecosmos.com site is the latest trailer for Captain Marvel. And I really think they did a nice job in trying to compact all the excitement that they could within the movie into that 30-second spot. I'm actually more excited than ever to go see the film. Your thoughts on the very quick, very brief, but very interesting trailer? And yes, it didn't really show us that much different from what we've seen already, but it packed up everything in a nice, neat little package for 30 seconds, and I really think it gets people excited for Captain Marvel.
Yeah, this was the best trailer, and this was the shortest trailer, but it is the best because basically they show you who is Captain Marvel and what can she do. They showed her origins in the jet scene, they showed her training, and then they showed her with these powers. She made the suit like materialize on her face. That's what people wanted to know. That's what people wanted to see originally. So I don't know why they haven't been doing that all along, but they finally showed us enough about the character to get people intrigued. And I'm looking at articles all over the internet and I'm seeing the same thing. People are like, we are now stoked for Captain Marvel. And good, because it comes out in what, a month?
That's correct. March 8th, it's going to hit. I'm excited for it. I think it will really be something that I think people need to see. I'm just cannot wait enough for it. It was really quick, but it showed and compacted a whole bunch of action into it and really exemplifies her power and what she can do as far as the type of things that she can control and the type of things that she can do and the damage she can inflict. She is really as powerful, I think, as what Kevin Feige has said she is going to be within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I look forward to seeing her character origin and the way it develops, plus also having another chance to watch Nick Fury and Agent Coulson, especially in the early years, as how they perceived it, watching that coming up in Captain Marvel. And we'll obviously, as it gets closer to the release date, we'll talk about it. And we'll also have a review for the movie as well, right here on the Pop Culture Cosmos and also our Friday show, the PCC Multiverse.
You're listening to the Pop Culture Cosmos. Don't touch that dial. Wait, do people still use dials?
Looking for an edge the next time you take on your favorite video game? Then check out Vitabrace High Performance Gamer Wristbands. Packed with the power of fruit seed oil, Vitabrace is clinically proven to help improve performance, giving you a better gaming experience. Head to miraclefruitoil.com and use the promo code MEDIA10 to get $10 off your Vitabrace purchase. Whether you're looking to beat the time on your latest speedrun or are fighting your way to the top on your favorite multiplayer or battle royale, Vitabrace can help you reach your gaming goals. Buy Vitabrace today at miraclefruitoil.com. That's miraclefruitoil.com. Vitabrace. Win with it. We also had other great stuff that actually debuted I don't want to say debuted, but actually other great trailers that were shown. And Hobbs and Shaw, I've seen it twice now, a longer version of the trailer, and I believe it was a 1-minute trailer. I don't think it was the 30 seconds. I think it was a 1-minute trailer that was shown at the Super Bowl. This looks like a lot of fun and more interesting to me than any of the Fast and Furious movies I've seen, and I've seen all of them. Your thoughts on the Hobbs and Shaw trailer? Yes, Idris Elba is the villain in the film. I really think he should be starring in his own blockbusters. I think he's right there on the cusp of being superstar in his own right, but still he's not quite there yet, but still playing another villainous role. I think the movie itself just really has a lot of fun doing that dichotomy between Hobbs and Shaw, aka Jason Statham, and The Rock. Just that love-hate relationship right there for you. Your thoughts on the Hobbs and Shaw trailer? I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm telling you right now, I have much more interest in it than any of the Fast and Furious movies.
Okay, so I just watched the actual trailer for this yesterday, and I have to say...
That's the extended trailer, correct?
Right, and I have to say, it does look like a lot of fun. It looks like a great popcorn flick, and I love the fact that, what makes this movie so appealing to me is that it is completely aware of itself. It knows that it's not a serious movie. It knows that it's an offshoot of a franchise. It knows all of these things. And that is something that Fast and the Furious has never been able to do well. They tried with their last couple of entries to go like, oh, hey, we're a big action movie and we know that it's over the top and that's why you guys still watch it. But there's been so much history in the Fast and the Furious franchise that makes it dramatic and kind of dark and sad, especially with the death of Paul Walker. And this is the first time. There's a fresh slate, characters we know, and they have this on-screen chemistry, and they're funny, they're brutal, and it looks like a fun, really fun movie.
One quick question I want to add, and I hope these rumors aren't true, but you and I have been hearing a long time, as well as a lot of other people out there have heard about the friction between Vin Diesel and The Rock, and Vin Diesel maybe trying to block or prevent this movie from ever taking place. At one point in time, maybe it was just he didn't give his blessing because he obviously is the person that is probably the most responsible for getting the Fast and Furious franchise to where it is today. Your thoughts on Hobbs and Shaw, when it comes out, it could actually upstage anything that's ever been done in the Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I had heard about that. And here's my take on Vin Diesel. He is only good at playing Vin Diesel. The Triple X, Riddick. The most depth I've seen him have is in, there's two movies. One is Knockaround Guys, and then the other was Iron Giant. And in Iron Giant, he doesn't even talk, really. He just kind of makes noises. He's kind of full of himself. That's what I want to say. Like, he's kind of full of himself. And if you watch the special features on any of the Fast and the Furious movies, you see that he's always... Like, he's the member of the cast that the rest of the cast was always afraid of making angry.
You're not digging Groot?
Well, Groot, yeah, he is Groot. But he doesn't have enough talent to really say you can't make a spinoff of this movie. I really, really like the Riddick movies, but he plays Vin Diesel. That's it. Like, he's only good at playing himself, so he can't necessarily threaten to quit, because what else is he going to do? I don't see him being cast in any other roles anytime soon.
Well, it just comes to the point where there's method actors that really get into the role that are playing, and they really dig into it, and they become a different person or different entity altogether. And then there's the roles that the roles are catered to them. I think another example would be Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson plays Jack Nicholson virtually every movie in the past 20, 30 years. It's been Jack Nicholson plays a good version of Jack Nicholson. So it's along those same lines, but then you have other actors that can really dive into a role and be someone else. And Christian Bale in Vice, for instance, let's go that route, or other actors and actresses that can really just dig into a role and be someone else. So you do have those different type of roles. And you're right, Vin Diesel, he plays Vin Diesel, and now in pretty much every single role that he's in. And it's just whether it's because he's reached to that stature, but still the friction that might have been caused for Hobbs and Shaw, it's becoming clear why that was the case, because Hobbs and Shaw may have been a movie he didn't want to put on that same level as the Fast and Furious, but it might just end up being something like that, because it is right now a really, really good trailer. Hobbs and Shaw is really interesting, and I know you and I have really got a lot of good things to say about it, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Hobbs and Shaw in the future. Some other stuff that was going on as well was Hannah. Your thoughts on the series premiere, little trailer that came out? I think it was their version of what Netflix and the Cloverfield Paradox, where that was dropped onto us literally just right there, saying it's ready to go, and millions of viewers actually turned in right after the Super Bowl on that. This is kind of different because it is the first episode of a series, but it's only available for 24 hours. So by the time most of you hear this, it's already gone and not available for free viewing. So your thoughts on Amazon Prime's Hannah? It's based off the 2011 film. I was thinking it looks okay, but I'm just kind of disappointed that Amazon won't keep it available free for people that much longer.
Well, Amazon's actually in a very unique position right now, because they're not Netflix, but they don't have enough original content for you to not be able to browse their menu and not see everything they have to offer. Like, if they were to take Hannah and put it in the new release section, or in like whatever their version of Now Trending is, you could scroll through everything and you would not be able to see that show on there. So that's the one thing I do like about Prime right now, is like all their original shows can be on their featured wall at once. Yeah, so it sucks that they're removing it so quickly, but at the same time, if you have Amazon Prime, and I guarantee you a lot of the people who don't have Prime Video are still going to be going on Amazon.com, in which case they will probably have some kind of poster up there for a long time.
Other movies that were shown at the Super Bowl in some brief form or right around that time frame: Wonder Park, a new animated movie coming out in March. That one does not look good to me. I just was kind of disappointed by it. Us, the next movie in the line of movies from director Jordan Peele, that still looks very creepy, very interesting, and I want to see more of that film. It comes out March 22nd, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more with my good friend Jason Todd Fineburgh later in this episode. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There was little spots here and there that were mixed in. Your thoughts on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Us, Wonder Park? There was also Toy Story 4, but we're going to talk about that after your thoughts on Us, Wonder Park, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Scary Stories looks good. I like Guillermo del Toro. I think he's the right man to helm that. And, like you said, there wasn't a lot, but I'm sure we'll be seeing more as it gets close to its release, because what has Guillermo been up to, since he's not part of the new Hellboy film? We don't really know anything about what projects he's currently working on. So who knows, man? It looks like it could be good. What are your thoughts on it, though?
I don't think they needed to spend the money, because 30-second spots are $5 million that were being bought for during the Super Bowl. Yeah, it was 15-second spots were cut up, but still, they're spending a lot of money on advertising for it. I think a lot more buzz would have been created for these spots. In the case of Wonder Park and also Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I think it would have been better if they would just go ahead and maybe type of create a little bit more internet environment, or maybe on some other platform or other television programs that, yes, does not have the huge audience that the Super Bowl has, but those type of ads seem to get overlooked real quickly compared to all the other big game ads that are out there. I think Us is the movie that a lot of people are looking forward to, just because of the fact that not only does it look good, but also Jordan Peele's last movie was just really good. Obviously, one of the best movies of 2017, and Us could follow. And so there's a lot of hype and expectation when it comes to Us when that comes out March 22nd. And I'm going to talk more about that movie a little later on, again, with Jason Todd Fineburgh. Last but not least, Toy Story 4, because Alita Battle Angel also had a Super Bowl trailer, but we're going to talk more about that movie as it nears its February 14th release date. So we'll save our conversation for that one. Your thoughts on the very quick, at the end of the game ad for Toy Story 4?
I mean, I don't know what can I say about it. Like it looks good, and I think there is some hype out there for Toy Story right now, especially since they've been putting out all that stuff that shows Tim Allen and Tom Hanks wrapping up the movie, and then with the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, like it's all kind of good marketing time right now for Toy Story. So Toy Story 3 was pretty sad, but I don't know, it'll be sad to see like the end of that, because I don't think they're going to make any more after that, and it's just sad to see all that come to an end. But like we always discuss, will it reach future generations of people? Because it's been, that was a franchise that started back when I was a kid, so that's always the question there. But you probably have some thoughts, I'm sure, as someone who has 2 daughters, and I'm sure you've shown them Toy Story at some point. So what are your thoughts? What are their thoughts?
They've enjoyed the Toy Story series, but I thought it ended just fine with Toy Story 3. I thought it was a tearjerker to me. I didn't really need a Toy Story 4 to come out, but that's going to make a ton of money for Pixar and Disney and all that. I wasn't too impressed with the actual spot itself, which showed them at a carnival, all the toys that were there, and Tim Allen's character, Buzz Lightyear, actually getting caught in a carnival game, being one of the prizes, and having a discussion or heated argument with a couple of the other toys that are there, the other top prizes. I wasn't really impressed by it, but then again, it's just more Toy Story, and I had already come to grips with the series finito that I thought was Toy Story 3, and I think that was for a lot of people, I think that was the case as well. We'll see how well Toy Story 4 does when it comes out. I think there's more room in the world of Toy Story, but it also ended quite well on Toy Story 3. So even though they didn't need another, it's more Toy Story, and that can't be such a bad thing after all. What are your thoughts out there on the trailers that were available for the Super Bowl during that time frame this past weekend? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanic Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, before we head to the break, one last thing I want to ask you, Josh, real quick. EA, the rumors that are out there is that they're going to drop a Titanfall free-to-play game starting as early as Monday and available this week to players out there. It's not going to feature the Titans per se, but it's going to be in that Titanfall universe. Your thoughts on a free-to-play game on Titanfall, a game that's been very critically lauded, but not exactly the greatest seller, and unfortunately, it's not been the type of big win that I think EA has always thought it could be.
I'll tell you what it is. It's a good experiment, because if you like Titanfall, if that goes free to play and it has a battle royale mode attached to it, like the rumors are suggesting, that could be an interesting experiment, because if that does well, who's to say that Call of Duty and Battlefield won't try a similar formula? You see what I'm saying? Like it's a chance for these big titles, these big publishers, to get in on the ground floor of what Fortnite is doing without people having to buy a $60 game. What do you think, though?
I think it's something okay to try. I don't see the harm in it. Obviously, it's free to play, so I know you and I will probably give it at least a dabble and see if it's something we might be interested in. Is it something that's going to go ahead and knock off Fortnite? I don't think it will, but you know what? It may provide a new life for Titanfall, a series which we were not sure was going to continue, because like I said, even though both games have garnered critical acclaim, they've not performed as well as I know EA and the folks that made Titanfall thought it would. the pedigree of developers, a lot of them coming from the Call of Duty camp, and thought that would be actually something that a lot of people would be interested in. I played them both. I thought they were pretty good experiences, but obviously has not met the level of expectations I think EA was looking forward to. It just needs more time to gestate, I think, for people out there to really get into it and see if it's something that's going to be in their diet ahead of games like Fortnite and PUBG.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, look at Fortnite and PUBG. Unless they have really significant changes to gameplay, I think that it's only a matter of time before people start looking for something else. And if there's something else like Titanfall, because that's a whole different style of gameplay, and they're offering it for free, then that could potentially build up a lot of followers.
I think if it does materialize here this week, I think Josh and I will give it a try, see if we like it, and share our thoughts on the air if a Titanfall free-to-play game is something worth investing your time into. Coming up next, we've got my good friend Jason Todd Fineburgh from Hunnicween. He's going to go ahead and break down the horror movies coming in the first half of 2019. And then after that, our picks for the best and worst big game commercials this past weekend. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos.
Rob McCallum Films is back with a vengeance. Power of Grayskull, the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which chronicles the ultimate 80s billion-dollar franchise, Masters of the Universe. See exclusive interviews and hear untold stories from the people responsible for creating the world of Eternia, a place full of magic and science, and learn about the craft of creating action figures and animation. Power of Grayskull is just one of our many projects at Rob McCallum Films.
All right, we're back with the program. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. One thing we don't talk enough about here on the program is horror movies. So I thought I'd cover the first few horror movies of the new year, along with my good friend, who is our resident horror expert. You got to check out everything that's going on with his awesome podcast, Hunnicween, at Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so much more. It is my good friend, Mr. Jason Todd Fineburgh. Always great to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank God that both Florida and Vegas have not succumbed to the cold weather.
Exactly. But my hearts go out to all those affected by the Arctic freeze in the Midwest. But getting back to what we were talking about, it all starts when it comes to horror movies, and the horror movie genre really kicks off. Yes, you could say Escape Room was the first horror movie of the year, but that really didn't connect well with audiences. But The Prodigy is the first horror movie in a little while, in about a month. Your thoughts on the horror movie scene for early 2019, starting with The Prodigy?
Here's the thing, though, is that this started in the early 2000s with these late January, early February, or August to September horror films about evil kids. Now, we could go back to the 70s with The Omen, or even further with The Bad Seed. But we fast forward now with these movie posters where they're black and white and there's something wrong with the kid, and you speed up the film and you slow it down and you have all the jump scares. I'm not a fan of these type of horror films where they're taking place in the middle of nowhere. They can be anywhere USA, or they're somewhere in a dilapidated castle in England. They don't jive with me that much. Now, there's been like maybe one or two. You know, there is The Orphan, there is Mama, and that's an interesting one as well. But the thing is with these evil kids, I don't know if somebody just woke up one morning and said, hey, remember The Omen when we tried to remake it in June 6, 2006, 666, get it? And they've been trying to do that ever since. It doesn't work. And unfortunately, it is going up against Lego Movie 2. And it's going up against another Liam Neeson vigilante film called Pursuit, and What Men Want, which is pretty much a female version of What Women Want with Helen Hunt and Mel Gibson. So you got two of those movies that are contenders, especially if you're going against Lego Movie 2 and you're going against another evil kid movie. The problem is that everything is cryptic and it should be interesting and scary, but it's just, again, I go back to what I say around and around and around. It feels like an Omen meets Annabelle clone, and it just is not going to drive for me.
The other horror release I think of note is Happy Death Day to You. And the only reason I say for that is there was a public campaign to get the movie moved off of the Valentine's Day release date, and it was successful in a way, but really was only a matter of a day that it changed. So it's still coming out February 13th. Happy Death Day to you. Do you think that's something that's really going to jive with Valentine's Day audiences, people going out on dates, they want to take their significant other to a nice movie, and do you think Happy Death Day to you will actually fit the bill?
Okay, let me just say right here and right now, when I saw the trailer for this, and it was shoved in my face a lot about a year and a half ago, a lot of people just said it was a horror version of Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray would die a lot in the middle of that movie and just keep coming back until he got the day right. But the only twist with Happy Death Day is the character just had a power that could die, but eventually, I think she was dying slowly. The sequel, there are a lot of movies that have been pushed back over the years because of September 11th, or because, again, I think Bruce Willis's
Death Wish.
Right, that was moved as well because of school shootings and violence. These are teenage slasher movies where we have urban legend and Scream. And I understand that, again, these characters are mentally ill, and in our real life, we have characters that are mentally ill. But again, I don't think one is trying to take from the other and trying to pour more gasoline on the fire. I think this is just trying to tell. I mean, there are so many of these slasher movies that are telling stories, and then we see the real life dangers and the real life killers. But again, I think there's enough people with common sense that can tell fact from fiction, are not trying to blame this one movie compared to what happened in not one but several school shootings over the years. I wouldn't just pick one. I mean, I think that in all honesty and in fairness, we should go back to Columbine and really pick about how these school shootings are progressing. So I don't really know if it's going to help this movie or hurt this movie. I think what it's really going to come down to is you care about the characters, which in all honesty, when I saw Happy Death Day, just out of curiosity, I really didn't care about any of the characters. I don't want them wiped off the face of the earth, but they weren't that interesting. They're just taking something from that 20-second montage from Groundhog Day and going with that.
I also don't think it's going to score really high with audiences because I just don't think the timing is going to jive right. I don't think Valentine's Day is just the greatest time in the world to put out a horror movie, especially the fact that a lot of people are searching for romance and other type of films during that course of time. Plus,
you'd be surprised, there are a lot of single people out there, though. I mean, don't forget, there are a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
I hate to say it, though. I'm one of them, and it's difficult. I don't really want to, if I'm not taking a date, it's not a perfect date movie, but I guess you'd be surprised how many people go to these movies and go on date night to see Happy Death Day. There are a lot of horror fans, there are a lot of slasher fans. You'd be surprised how many couples go to these type of movies, but it's also single people that'll go as well. So I don't think one has anything to do with the other Valentine's Day as well. I think...
What do you think Lego Movie 2 might actually have more to do with it? Because it will only be in its second week.
Lego Movie 2, I think because it's from the people that gave us Spider-Verse, enough said. And of course, Spider-Verse has killed it at the box office and has won several awards for Best Picture at Golden Globes, British Film, Screen Actors Guild. I think when you get the people who made Lego Movie 1, Lego Movie 2, and Spider-Verse, no, this is going to blow it out the water anyway. It'll probably be in the top 5 and over time make its money back through video. But going back to the story itself, besides everything else that's happening, I just don't find it to be an interesting story.
In March, Climax from A24, they do and deal with a lot of horror movies and smaller budget movies, but there's no type of release frame as far as how many theaters it's going to be distributed to. So that shows me already that if they're not confident in making it a wide release, it may just be something that's going to be out of the theaters real quickly.
Well, there's another one that I'm kind of curious about, Us, that of course we have from our good friend who gave us Get Out.
Jordan Peele, awesome,
Yes.
Awesome director. And yes, this is something that has actually interested a great many people with a tremendous trailer that dropped not too long ago.
Yeah, I saw the trailer actually when I saw Vice, and I have to admit, Get Out was a nice little horror film that came out of nowhere. Because I know that he wanted to bring back his version of Twilight Zone, and this kind of reminds me of a Twilight Zone episode in the first season where a woman does meet her doppelganger from an alternate universe, and one can't live while the other one is alive, which pretty much means is that either the evil has to kill the good or the good has to kill the evil, but both can't live in the same universe. And that's pretty much what Us is going to be, is that this family meets evil versions of themselves and they have to kill them. Otherwise, one can't live while the other one is alive, because that seems to be the rules, that they can't live in the same universe together.
And that movie's coming out March 22nd to theaters. That movie is obviously something that, like you said, with the pedigree of Jordan Peele and the fact that he's coming off one of the best movies of 2017 with Get Out, got so much acclaim, awards everywhere, nominations everywhere else. Just a great showing for that movie. And Us being the next in the line from him, I definitely expect big things from that movie as well. So I guess the next major horror movie that's going to be on the queue comes up in April in Pet Sematary, the remake from the Stephen King novel, and also a reimagining of what we once saw with Pet Sematary, the original. So I want to hear your thoughts on this new version of Pet Sematary, because it is a reimagining of that horror classic from Stephen King that a lot of people found so dearly. People are like touch and go, hit or miss as far as the original version that came to the movies of Pet Sematary. It depends on who you talk to. When I saw it, I thought it was okay. I wasn't overwhelmed by it. But your thoughts on the new version of Pet Sematary, because it's going to hit in April in theaters.
Well, here's the thing. This was the last great 80s horror film, if anybody does say so themselves, and by anybody, film critics and fans. But for me, I read the book because I was a huge Stephen King fan, and in the 80s, there was this huge Stephen King book club that was advertised a lot on TV. And when Pet Sematary, the movie, came out, they would show clips of Church and Gage, and the movie has not aged as well as I had hoped, and I have the documentary as well. The sequel came out, the less we talk about Pet Sematary 2, the better. But as for this trailer that I've seen, here's the problem. Fred Gwynne was Judd. And as for the little kid who played Gage, he was awesome. He also would go on to be in Wes Craven's New Nightmare as Heather Langenkamp's son. But it went down to Fred Gwynne's performance as Judd. That's the one thing that I'll always remember. The book was really more about a philosophical and psychological discussion on death and resurrection. I don't think anybody asked for a reimagining. There was no reason for it. It did well at the box office, enough for it to get a sequel and to have Mary Lambert direct the original and the sequel, but I don't know what this reimagining is really going to tell and why we need to have it, again, with creepy kids. They're in this marching band wearing animal masks, kind of like with the WWE with the Wyatt family. We don't need all of that. What made it scary was the fact that this family seemed to be in the middle of nowhere. They didn't build a fence. The kid went out in the middle of the road, got hit by a truck, and the father wanted to do anything to bring the kid back. He buried him in this pet cemetery. The kid comes back as a zombie, and that's it. The ground is sour, and it kills people. Although in the book, when you buried people and they came back, they would just gossip about you. That was it. They weren't killers. But as much as I would love to see Dick from Third Rock from the Sun, we all know Mr. John Lithgow as Judd, I don't really think he has that cadence or performance to give a New England accent. I just feel this is going to be a big budget film that nobody wanted or asked for. And not only sometimes that is better, sometimes I think the book is better, or sometimes I think, dare I say it, even though I hadn't seen it in years, the original is better. I don't understand for the life of me, other than this is a tax write-off, why they want to touch Pet Sematary.
It's coming out the weekend of April the 5th, from what I'm seeing, and it's also coming out against Shazam. That's also not boding well for the movie, and I think that it's going to suffer widely because even though it's a wide release for Paramount, going up against Shazam with a lot of good buzz going into the film for Shazam, I think Shazam could be a breakout hit, or has at least the possibility of doing so, because there's a lot of good word on it until the reviews come out, of course. I think Shazam could hold up very strong, and that would mean bad news for Pet Sematary, the remake.
Well, this is what I'm not understanding either, because I don't know why Hollywood execs, first of all, for the month of April, not only getting Shazam, we're also going to be getting the second part of Infinity War.
And also Hellboy.
But I don't quite understand having Pet Sematary go against Shazam, especially as Aquaman did well and then some, and we all made fun of it. I don't really see how this movie is even going to stand on any legs. I think it's just going to stay buried and nothing's going to resurrect it or bring it back.
And once again, I'm on with Jason Todd Fineburgh of Hunnicween. You got to check out his awesome pop culture podcast. Every single time you check it out on Podbean, it's Hunnicween, and also Apple Podcasts and so many other different podcast outlets. The next major wide release for horror movie on that list comes out just a week before Avengers Endgame, and it's The Curse of La Llorona. Do you know anything about that one? Because it is from Warner Brothers and New Line. It is a wide release, and it's coming out at a time when I think Pet Sematary should have come out, if it's coming out in April, and all by itself the week before Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, this seems to be one of those movies that may be a pleasant surprise. It should come to no surprise that you have the person who gave us The Children, which was a very interesting international horror film about killer children that were possessed by demons. It's another ghost story that takes place in Latin America. You get a lot of these Latin American folklores. And whether or not this is going to be about the chupacabra, or whether or not this is going to be about demons, or whatever the supernatural entity is going to be, I have a lot of faith in Michael Chaves. Huge fan of his, got to get to him another time. But I think when it comes to these type of movies where it's not just humans that are going, it's not amiable horror, let's put it that way. So I think this will be an interesting story, but I have a lot of faith in this film.
It sounds like it's got a good pedigree behind it, and even though we haven't seen much of it yet or heard about much of it yet, I think in the coming months beforehand, we are going to hear a lot more about The Curse of La Llorona. And
now, I just want to say one other thing, too, about La Llorona, is that if it is who I think it is as well, there are these weeping women out there that like to take children. She will be one of the villains, but I don't think she's going to be the main villain. Now, I know this is The Curse of La Llorona, but I don't really think she's going to be the major, because reading about her, and I have studied her a few times, sometimes she's tragic and sometimes she's a demon, depending on how you read the folklore into her. It's definitely going to be kind of like a Poltergeist meets Harry Potter.
Well, there you go. Very interesting indeed. I want to ask you about Brightburn. I mentioned it briefly beforehand, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. Your thoughts on this different twist to the horror genre. Well, yeah, it still deals with a young child like we're seeing with The Prodigy, and it does deal with the Midwest, but it does have a similar type feel as far as if Superman went bad when it comes to Brightburn.
Well, this is like if, the Kents adopted General Zod. That's what a lot of people are saying. James Gunn is producing this one. The only thing I can tell you is that I don't think this movie is going to end well unless there's going to be a sequel, unless they actually kill this thing. It's a shame that it's not going to be taking place in the DC universe. It would be awesome. The only thing about this is that a couple years ago, there was this $10 DC horror comic book in which Superman did come to Earth, but he was evil and only spoke in Kryptonian, killed Pa Kent right away, and killed Ma Kent as well. And they were actually in their 40s when this was going on. And it takes place in the present. So she kind of looked like Aunt May from the MCU. But I don't know how well this is going to work. Unless this actually was Zod, I think this is going to be a one-off film. I don't really think this is going to be, unless they bring in a fictional superhero to fight Brightburn, I don't know how this is going to work. I think this is just a fanfic of, well, what if Zod came to Earth instead of Kal-El? That's the only way that I see this working. But I think this is going to be like 20 minutes of fan fiction, 30 minutes of horror, and then the 20 minutes of wrapping everything up and going, there you go. So I'm not really too stoked about this one, other than I'm glad that James Gunn is still working.
Well, it is coming out in the latter part of May, near the Memorial Day weekend, not on that weekend, but just beforehand. So that means it might actually get a nice little boost from that Memorial Day weekend. But as I've spoken about several times before in the past, the Memorial Day weekend has never been a give when it comes to movies. In fact, the last two Disney movies to appear on the Memorial Day weekend have both not performed anywhere near the level of expectations that there were for it. So we could see something like Brightburn actually poke out of the pack during that latter part of the May month cycle and hit with audiences if it's anywhere decent and the concept does get over with fans. But you're right, it could very well end up being a one-off if it's not done correctly, even though James Gunn does have a little bit of a say as far as producer is concerned. Brightburn could be like that major hit or miss for the horror genre. We're going to have to wait and see. I know there's another half of 2019 that we're going to talk about coming up later in the year when it comes to all the movies, including It Chapter 2 and so much more when it comes to horror genre. But he knows the stuff when it comes to all things pop culture. And also, if you get a chance, you got to check out his awesome podcast, Hunnicween. Jason, tell everyone out there why Hunnicween is an awesome show to listen to. I've enjoyed it, and I know others will as well.
Because I worked really hard on it. I don't know. Because I blackmailed you. I have no idea anymore. Look, all I can say is that I have a lot of great friends who have come and gone on the series. I'm on a very small hiatus for a few months because I'm just finishing up my bachelor's of nursing, and my other hosts, Kendra and Edward Hale, they needed some much needed time off. They purchased a brand new house and they started new careers. So we're just taking a very small breather, but we're going to be popping up every now and then for March and April because we do want to give our thoughts on Infinity War. And I'm actually going to be at Comic-Con Revolution, and I'm going to be interviewing Don Rassa, who wrote the Uncle Scrooge comics, especially The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. And I'll be interviewing Jimmy Palante and Amanda Connor, who worked on the first several issues of Harley Quinn, as well as our good friend who was the co-creator of Deadpool.
Are you talking about Rob Liefeld?
Yes, that's him. As well as, hopefully, I'm trying to get Jake the Snake Roberts. He's going to be there as well. So I show it. Hopefully I get to interview them for a few minutes more.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Be interesting to hear about Jake the Snake Roberts' life. I know he frequents Las Vegas a bit, but it'd be great to hear his life now that he's gotten rid of many of the demons in his life and how he perceives his life now going into a different stage. So that ought to be interesting to hear. Once again, it is Jason Todd Fineburgh from Hunnicween. You got to check out his awesome podcast and all of his back episodes on Podbean and so many other podcast outlets. But Jason, I am getting you on with your thoughts on the DC and Marvel universe as it happens, and I want to hear your thoughts on that. So you'll be coming back on the show, hopefully, to give us more updates and analysis and insight on everything going on in pop culture as well.
The last thing I'm going to say about this whole DC versus Marvel, I'll give you a little taste. I think now there's going to be a fight. Thankfully, due to Aquaman killing at the box office, Wonder Woman, well, thank God she did okay. And this Birds of Prey premise, I think DC will have some legs. With Marvel, the biggest one right now is going to be Captain Marvel has a lot of controversy. We have the sequel to Infinity War as well as Spider-Man. And I really enjoyed that trailer. So after we get Infinity War, and I guess we're going to get a whole new slew of MCU phases and new characters, because I think old are leaving and new are coming in. Yeah, this is going to be a huge, huge, huge discussion.
Well, I'm looking forward to it myself. And it's always great to have you on the show, my friend, talking horror, pop culture, or anything else you want to talk about. As always, just great to have you part of the pop culture cosmos.
If you're tired of sifting through flea markets for rare and unique games, we can help. Retro City Games in Henderson, Nevada, only 5 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip, has all your favorite gaming staples, classics, and a wide selection of rare games with new stuff always appearing on our shelves. Come in and chat with Nicole or Doug about your love of games and watch as they help you complete your collection or find your childhood favorite. And don't forget, Retro City Games loves trade-ins. So if you have any Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, Xbox, PlayStation, or even PC games, come in and visit Retro City Games today. Welcome to the new metropolis of gaming, Retro City Games.
And we're back to close out the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. Thank you once again to everyone who has subscribed to our Podbean channel as we hit 1,000 subscribers. We cannot thank you enough for doing so. And then also Jason Todd Fineburgh from Hunnicween. You got to check out his show as well. And before we close the show, we've got to talk about the commercials that we liked and we didn't like at the big game. So my friend, I'm going to leave it up to you first off. 3 commercials that you liked from the big game this past weekend.
Okay, my first one here, I got the Bud Light commercials. I like the first one the best just because it was the longest and it was funny. But honestly, I think all 3 of them were really good. My question now is the Bud Knight permanently dead after getting crushed by the mountain in that Game of Thrones crossover? My second favorite commercial was the Alexa commercial.
The Alexa commercial I thought was pretty good. And you know what? Harrison Ford, who's usually reluctant to do anything outside of a movie, him being in the commercial was actually pretty good.
There were some moments in the commercial where they're trying too hard, but it was pretty funny. Third one here, it was the M&M commercial. When I heard the voices, I knew who they belonged to. I knew it was going to be an M&M commercial, but I was not expecting to see them all stuck in a chocolate bar. So I don't know why. My inner child just found that really funny.
Okay, my top 3, I think I'm first off going to go with Expensify. This was their first foray into Super Bowl commercials. If you didn't get a chance to catch it, I thought it was pretty slick. Number 2, I think Hyundai, their commercial, The Elevator with Jason Bateman, I thought that was really good, where he's taking you to different levels of pain, which included shopping for a car, but the couple he was dropping off had the app, and that would make it a lot easier. So he took them in a different direction and then had a good joke at the end for someone who was getting, let's say, a certain treatment that was painful. And then the last was the Bud Light Game of Thrones. I think that was very close for me between that and The Elevator. Both commercials were really good. The Game of Thrones part of it really threw us off. We had no idea that was coming, and that just was something that was very surprising to both of us. Dilly dilly, man. Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly.
But there were also some commercials that really disappointed. Your choices on the worst of the worst when it came to big game commercials this past weekend.
Real quick, I do want to give a honorable mention to the Doritos commercial.
Same here. Good commercial.
It was Chance the Rapper, but seeing Backstreet Boys come back together for that little thing, that was pretty cool. My bottom 3 commercials, the Spike Seltzer commercial is pretty bad. I just didn't understand it. It was Why Mermaids, that was just a really weird, out of place commercial. Other one was the Michelob Ultra one. Again, the robot thing, everyone was using robots. And the other one I had was Stella Artois. It was a good commercial. It was well put together, but I didn't like how, much like the Crocodile Dundee commercials, they made you think that there was going to be another Big Lebowski movie. And it's not. It's just a commercial. So if it weren't for that, it would have been an okay commercial. But because they tease something that's not going to happen, it's going on my crap list.
Stella Artois is on my list of not so good commercials as well. The other 2 that I really didn't like, I'm sorry to say this because they host one of our websites, but Wix, unfortunately, that was just a very uninteresting and bland and just not the message you really want to get across to people out there as far as trying to create a website. And I just think that's a commercial that you see every day and you just ignore it every day. And they just decided to go ahead and spend $5 million and just put it on there. So unfortunately, Wix, sorry. You know what? Put us on. We'll make the commercial a lot better. And we use Wix. So there you go. And the worst commercial to me was TurboTax, the RoboChild. Oh my gosh, that was a bad commercial.
And it's not just because it was poorly written, it was kind of terrifying. And it didn't make sense. Why would you make a robot? And then why would the robot want to be a TurboTax person? It was a lot of random things brought together, and somebody in a boardroom somewhere thought that that was a good idea, but they were probably on medicinal marijuana or something. I don't know why that happened.
What's your list out there, everyone, when it comes to the best and the worst commercials during the big game? Let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And speaking of those social media outlets, send us, please, a list of your top 10 films by Valentine's Day. We'd like to do another big top 200 list out there for popculturecosmos.com site. Send it to us at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So, my friend, it's been a great episode. Any last thoughts on the way out?
No, I think we covered them all. Yeah, we'll have more pop culture stuff for you next time.
That's right. On our Friday show, the PCC Multiverse, the Lego Movie 2 comes out, so we'll share our thoughts on that as it hits theaters this weekend, plus a lot more to come in the world of pop culture. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
You ever been curious about the real or fictional worlds?
In the beginning, there were laser kings and giant robots.
Those who create.
I'm going to feed you to this tentacle monster now. No.
Or what inspires.
And I remember being in my room with my brother, and we immediately, like within 5 seconds, he decided he was a DC fan and I decided I was a Marvel fan. And we were going through and sorting out all of the comics.
And you might enjoy You Be Tigers, the only podcast show where we take life by the tail. Now available on Google Play, Stitcher, and iTunes, and of course your favorite podcasting network. This is You Be Tigers.
You're listening to a Weeby Geeks Network podcast.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Tangent Bound Network. Let your voice be heard. TangentBoundNetwork.com.
Thanks so much for downloading the Pop Culture Cosmos, and stay tuned as more great podcasts are on the way. Thanks again for listening to us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.